Tap 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 tap. Okay, I'm done. That's right, lifter ticking is aggravating. Aside from that, exhaust leaks, solid number 2. Lifter ticking has been just a bane in my existence with these LSs. I love LSs, they're fantastic motors, great power plants, make great power. People have made thousands of horsepower with stock style lifters, but they are notorious for failing, having hydraulic failures, ticking, tapping, driving people absolutely nuts. And if you've ever been around an LS, you know what I'm talking about. I don't care who you are. If you've been around LSs long enough, you know about the lifter tick. Just go ahead and Google sewing machine LS lifters and you'll find 100 things on it. They're just a problem. And so we went ahead and decided that it was time to tear apart this car. We're going to be racing this thing quite a bit on the track, and we want to make sure that, you know, we just kind of address as much as we possibly can. So with this build, it's an LS1, nothing too crazy. It has some nice forged pistons in it, ARP fasteners, Texas Speed Stage 3 cam, upgraded springs. I got a new oil pump, even though it already has a new oil pump. I'm gonna put another one in just because it's a part. New double roller timing chain, you name it. We're basically just improving what is already a good build by adding the Johnson race style lifters. So I did show it in the previous video, the teardown, and now today we're gonna start assembling it and getting it ready to get back on the track. And I actually have those lifters soaking right now in oil. I have that in oil, I have the chain in oil, I have a lot in oil. And let me show you how that went with the lifters. If you buy lifters brand new out of the box, even the best brand you could buy, Johnson's lifters for an LS, clean them in isopropyl alcohol, lacquer thinner, something of that solvent nature. Get them as clean as you possibly can, because fresh out of the box, there's metal chunks and dirt right out of the box. Boom! So yeah, those lifters, fresh out of the box, soaking in isopropyl alcohol, had dirt and metal. I actually took a magnet and found metal chunks in that isopropyl alcohol. So you tell me, I personally don't want to mess around with my motor. I know a lot of people are like, I just wiped them down, I spit shine, whatever. You do you. I found metal in them. I really have no desire to put that in the motor. So I had those things soaking in oil right now, and it's time for us to begin building this sucker. So I'm gonna pull you in here and show you what's next. All right, so as you see here, the motor is actually disassembled, it has the heads off, everything's ready to go back together. I have the lifters out, the plastic trays out, everything's completely out. Now the key is, before we drop those lifters in, get everything kind of ready to go, we need to clean the surfaces. This block was surfaced, the heads were surfaced, and everything was done before we put it together. But as you see, the stock LS9 head gaskets, which by the way, we're not doing those again. We're going to a much smaller bore gasket, which I shared in the previous video, and I'll grab them here in a minute. They actually leave residue from, I don't know if it's like a silicone base or whatever it is, but it leaves a residue on the surface. And some people, again, don't clean that off, but I like a very, very clean surface to mate the gaskets and the heads to. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and start cleaning both of these surfaces off as thorough as I possibly can. And then I'm gonna use a rag, and then I'm gonna use a vacuum. I'm just gonna clean it thoroughly. Make sure there's no lint, no junk. A clean motor is a good motor. So I'm gonna get started. I'll go ahead and start cleaning those surfaces. right, so after hours and hours of cleaning, we finally have this sucker ready to go. So the pistons actually didn't need much cleaning at all. Because we run E85 on this, the motor burns extremely clean, and just a quick wipe down and they look brand new again. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the lifters and we're going to begin assembling this. We're going to throw the lifters in, head gaskets, and go from there. So let me go grab those lifters. All right, so here in this protein powder container that has been thoroughly cleaned, we have the lifters that have been soaking in driven break-in oil, 1550. And I'm going to go ahead and start installing them into the lifter bores. The cam is already lubricated and everything's ready to go. So now all we have to do is make sure that the link bar points up. It does not go towards the piston. On an LS, the link bar goes up. So make sure that when you install them, you have them oriented correctly. Now I'm probably gonna have to wipe this down again as the oil is gonna fall in here, which is fine. More lubrication is better. All right, let me bring you closer and you can watch how these slide right in. Okay, so as you see, the link bar goes up. And by the way, if you notice this like residual on the aluminum here, that's etching from, you know, a motor that's been run for a long time. This motor had been hot tanked 3 times and it still has that a little bit on there. So just the unfortunate part of aluminum. So here I'm going to go ahead and begin sliding these suckers in here. They should slide in there pretty smooth once you get them in the bore. Like I said, oil's okay, not a big deal. Oil only lubricates things. All right, so we're going to keep getting them in there, nice and lubricated. All right, slides in nice and smooth. Let's get to the other side and continue. Nice and clean, just like the other side. And again, it only took me 15 minutes really to clean the sucker up. I said hours as a joke, but really it only took me 15 minutes, especially with how low of runtime this motor had previously. So get these suckers in and then we'll move on to the head gaskets. Which again, the head gaskets are not LS9, which is a very common gasket that people use, especially for boosted applications on rebuilds. LS9s are a way bigger bore than an LS1, so you really don't want to go that big on the bore. You can, people get away with it, but you really should just get a smaller bore gasket, and that's exactly what I did, so I'll show you that here soon. Okay, and the last set. And now I'll clean all this oil out of the cylinder walls and off the surface, and then I'll grab those head gaskets. All right, the lifters are now installed. That was quick, that was simple. Let's move on to the heads. We have the head gaskets here, which I already shared this in the previous video, but the LS9 head gaskets have way too large a bore for an LS1 and a 5.3. So I highly, highly recommend you go and get yourself some Chemetics. And these things are a 4.035 bore, which is still a little bigger than the LS1, but still, that's way closer to the LS1 bore than an LS9 head gasket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open these packages up. We're going to get those things set onto the studs, the ARP head studs, and then we'll get those heads on there. So let's get that going right now, and then we'll move on. All right, so here's the Chemetic gaskets. We just got to remove from the package. And things are directional. So as you see here, if you look real close on the gasket, it says front. So let me see if I can zoom in. Front. So yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. So make sure it's pointed towards the front. Also, you need to make sure that the coolant passages line up perfectly with the holes. And there's actually a slip in there that shows you, but these are where the studs go in. And then these are coolant passages. So just make sure that you actually have coolant passages flowing and you should be in really good shape. So back here, the reason the front is a little different is the front has a single coolant passage, just a small pinhole. And down at the block, it's just a slit in the front. Well, on the back, it's actually a wide open port. And so it has much larger water ports in the back of the head gasket and on the block. So just make sure that you put these on correctly or you're going to have some serious heat issues and some other issues. So I'm going to go ahead and just slide this on. It's not rocket science, just slide it on there and you're in really good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and push it over the dowel pins, make sure that they're tight. Okay. Now we'll go to the other side and get that one on real quick. But before I do, I'm going to show you up close and personal how this sucker should actually go onto the block. All right, so here's my point of view of the gasket, and if you look at it without even looking at where the front is marked, you can actually see the ports. So if you see on this side where my finger is, it's a larger coolant port, and on this side it's not, it's just a small pinprick. So if you look down here at the block, it has a U-shaped just coolant port on the top and the bottom of the front around the cylinder wall, and then on the back side it has much larger water ports. So if you could imagine this right here, where it's just a tiny pinprick, if I were to put that over there, it's not going to flow at all. So as you see, this most likely is the back. So if you flip over the gasket, there you go. You can actually see the word front on the front of the gasket. So just make sure that when you slide it on, you don't bind anything. I actually need to put this stud back in, but not a big deal. I cleaned out the water from it and all the residue because you don't want to crack your block torquing it down. So we just slide it on smooth. Be careful, don't rush this. It's just a gasket, but you don't want to rush anything when you're putting together a motor because you only do it once and you're in good shape. So that's ready to go, and as you see, the bore is really close. Look at that. See how close it is to the bore of the cylinder? That is much nicer than the bore of an LS9 head gasket. You actually see more of the ridge from the block where the piston is on an LS9 head gasket, but on this it actually takes up most of that mating surface. So I'm gonna go grab the heads. They've been cooking for a little while, cleaning up, wipe this down, and we'll put the heads on. All right, so here are the heads. They've been thoroughly cleaned on the mating surface. So what you wanna do is gently slide it on. And like I said, don't rush anything, just gently slide it on the studs. And make sure you're not pinching any wires, not getting anything trapped. And boom, that one's on. We'll grab the other side and start setting it on that side. And boom. So now that I have the heads on the motor resting, I have all of the bolts washed and ready to go. They're actually nuts and washers that actually go onto the studs. Now the studs are tightened down into the block just by hand. You want to bottom them out. Don't go all the way. Don't torque them down. If they don't go all the way smooth, take them out, thread chase them, clean them out, get them ready. So these have all been done. I actually am cleaning the nuts so that I can put ARP fastening lubricant on it. It's for the torque. It just helps with torque pattern and whatever. It comes with all ARP fasteners. So I'm going to go ahead and grab those, and then we're going to start throwing them onto the studs, and then we'll get to torquing. All right, so before we torque these down, we're going to take them down gently with the impact, and look, doesn't have to be all out. You can lightly turn it, lightly. So do not impact these down, just lightly take them down. And by the way, another rule of thumb is you start from the center out and go in like a circle pattern. So just go in a circle pattern as if you were torquing them. All you're doing is taking them down. You're not torquing them. You're not tightening them. Just taking them down. Okay, and welcome to Tech Talk with RJ. So we took these studs and the nuts and everything down to the bottom, and it's not torqued down at all. So I drew up a visual representation on how these get torqued down. These are directly off ARP's website. There's a pattern that, as I said, is kind of a circular pattern to make these things torque down correctly. So as you see, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, there's a pattern to this. You want to take down 1 through 10 to 25. Then you take 1 through 10 to 50, 1 through 10 to 70, and in some cases you can go to 80 foot-pounds of torque to finish it off. I'm going to do that since this is a boosted application. Now, after you've done all 3 steps of 1 through 10, then you take 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 to 28 foot-pounds. So I'm going to go ahead and get my torque wrench, and we're going to start taking them down one by one in order as I just described, and start getting these torqued down. Okay, so again, for visual representation, I'm going to go ahead and set this here so that we can follow it. I'm going to set my torque wrench to 25, as I said, and then we're going to go ahead and begin torquing it down. So starting at 1, okay, we'll go to 2. Now keep in mind, as you pull it down, some of them might loosen. That's why you do it in steps. Okay, 3. Oh yeah, I'm gonna get a workout by the time this is said and done. And I've barely begun. Okay, 4. Now we're going to do it a second time at 25, just because things loosened. All right, now that we've done that, we're going to set the torque wrench to 50. And by the way, this is a Summit Racing torque wrench. I love them, they work great, but the buttons always fall off. This is my 3rd one and all the buttons fall off. So what you want to do is you want to go to 50 foot-pounds. Yeah, I went to 52. Okay, good enough, 50.6. Now that we have it to 50 foot-pounds, we're going to go to our last one. And as I said, I'm going to go 80 because this is a boosted application. So let's go ahead and take it up to 80. And this is where I'm going to get my workout. So watch me struggle. Okay, now I'm going to do it one more time. Just make sure that 80 is good. Okay, so now that those are torqued, we're going to set these to 28 foot-pounds. I'm going to zero this out. Okay, so this side is completely torqued down. So I'm going to get to the other side. I'll bring you up close and personal, and I'm not going to talk through it. We're just going to get it done. All right, so in a previous video, I actually did a short on this. I showed that you can take these off in one fell swoop. You basically just loosen all the 10 millimeter bolts from the top side, and then you grab the pedestal underneath the rocker pedestal and just lift it in one piece. Now, the reason I was so adamant about getting the heads done before I even touched the turbo piping or anything else is we have to measure for push rods. So I'm going to go ahead and set the pedestal down, and then I'm going to grab the tool and show you guys how to do a full measurement on the push rod so that we can get them ordered. Now, I went ahead and left one of these rockers off to show exactly what the rockers are. So these are a stock rocker body, and then this is a CHE Precision Ink journal that has been pressed into these things. So basically what that means is there's a bearing on the inside that can fall apart and cause needle bearings to go all over your motor. This is a brass bearing, so it eliminates all those needles, and it just has a brass journal on the inside. So these are really good. They last a long time, so we're going to go ahead and set this down in here to measure for the push rods. All right, so if you're a car guy, you've been there. You have that buddy that calls you and says, hey man, I want to put a bump up stick in my vroom vroom machine. And they go ahead and they order a stage 1, 2, 3, whatever camshaft. And that camshaft comes with 7.4 push rods. And he says, I'm going to throw it in my new truck. I just bought off the Craigslist. And he goes ahead and he tears everything apart. And he throws in the new camshaft with the 7.4 push rods, most likely. And he just says, hey man, it ran good. And then it started making a bunch of racket. And then it broke. And then you tear it apart and you go, okay, let me see what's going on. And you look real closely, and camshaft has all sorts of damage on the lobes. You can see where some of them were trying to survive, and others are just beating the daylights out of this camshaft. Yeah, it's usually what happens. And why that happens is, regardless, no matter what you do, if you buy a camshaft, always, always, always measure your push rods. And when you measure your push rods, make sure you get yourself a fancy tool like this that you can extend and retract. Or they have other tools out there that you put on top, spring, whatever. But get yourself a tool and measure your push rod length, because you don't know the history of that motor. Unless you bought that thing brand new off the showroom floor, and even if you did, manufacturing could be just a little bit off. Get yourself a tool and measure for push rods. As promised, we're going to go ahead and get into the push rod length measurement on a motor. Basically, how do you do that? What does it look like? So I did a small description on my Mickey Mouse notepad here, and forgive me, I'm not an artist, but here is a small description. So we're going to work from this side over. Here you have a spark plug going into a combustion chamber with the piston, right? Here is a valve that is inside the head. The valve has a spring on the top that the rocker arm actually presses down. And how does that happen? Well, there's a push rod on this side that goes into the cup. And this push rod goes down and goes into the lifter, and the lifter rides on the cam lobe. So this is actually the camshaft, and I'll show you what all these pieces look like physically. So what this is this is the base circle. Basically what that means is if you go to this description, you can see the peak of the camshaft is actually pushing the lifter up, which pushes the push rod up against the rocker. The rocker presses down on the spring and opens the valve. Why does it open the valve? It allows airflow to go into the combustion chamber, allows it to create an explosion, go out the exhaust chamber. So that's why there's an intake and an exhaust valve. So basically what you want to do is, I'm going to set this down before I get into preload, is you want to find out what that measurement is. Like, it has to be precise. So to be precise, that means this push rod here has to be the right length so that when it's in the cup, the preload is correct. So preload is right here. There's a cup that the push rod actually sits on top of, and you can see the flat piece here. And then there's a ball and a spring that goes down the plunger. So it's actually like a plunger that goes in to the lifter, and that's all oil controlled and so on and so forth. That plunger has to be set to a certain depth for the build of the lifter. So basically the lifter has a set preload based on how much depth it wants that preload to be. Here it shows all the way to the top, a little bit of preload going down, and then all the way down to midway section of that lifter. If you go all the way down, you're going to collapse the lifter and it's going to break. You don't go far enough in, it's going to flop around. You could drop a push rod out and go down into the motor. Either way, it's bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to measure that, but let me show you what the lifter actually physically looks like inside the motor. Here is a general Delphi LS lifter. This is a stock generic style. It has a roller here. It's considered a roller lifter, hydraulic roller lifter. Hydraulic means it has a plunger. If it was solid, this plunger would be solid. There would not be a plunge at all, and it would be set with valve lash. We won't get into that. It's a completely different video. But it also has an oil squirter right here inside this lifter. This is for oil control and everything on the top of the valve train. So this lifter has a push rod that sits inside the cup, as I just described. And as you see, when it pushes in, that's the preload. See? So this goes in, preload would push it down to a certain depth, right? And then here is a typical camshaft, right? The camshaft has an exhaust and an intake lobe. This is an LS9 camshaft for an LS9 LSA style engine. So basically it rolls on these lobes, and as it goes up and then it goes down, and basically how that works. So now that you've seen the parts and pieces, I'm going to go ahead and set this sucker down, and I'm going to bring you in with the camera, and I'm going to show you exactly what we're doing on the motor and how to check for preload. Okay, so as promised, it's time to start measuring for the pushrod length. And what this is this is an adjustable pushrod checker. It's a tool. So what you want to do is you want to put 2 stock pushrods inside here. So what we're trying to do is, you see the rockers on top. That's on top of this side, and this is the plunger on the bottom for the lifter. This is a stock Delphi lifter. This has a Johnson short travel race style link lifter. The difference is the Johnson lifters are short bodies. They are actually shorter than these bodies altogether. So the distance is much different. The plunger is much different. And this has a 45 to 55 thousandths plunge for the preload, and the Johnsons have 30 thousandths plus or minus 5. So how do you go ahead and measure for that? So what you want to do is find the base lobe of the cam. How do you do that? EOIC, exhaust open, intake close. Adjust the intake when the exhaust opens, adjust the exhaust when the intake closes. So what I'm going to do is turn the motor, and we're going to get the exhaust, which is here. We're going to measure for this one. This is the exhaust. It lines up with this valve. This is the intake. It lines up with this valve. So this intake close, exhaust open, intake close. So take your spark plugs out, otherwise it's going to be a hard turn. So as you see, nothing moved. You know why? This push rod is clearly not in the plunger of the lifter. Now it is. So look at that. It's opening. It's opening. Now the intake is starting to close. Now we can measure for this one. So we'll take the stock push rod out. And as you see, we have this. It's going to be longer because of the plunge. So I'm going to go ahead and adjust this out a little bit, because I know for a fact it's going to be longer. Okay. So now what do is you throw it in here. You place it in the cup of the lifter, and then you want to tighten this down. So let me go ahead and take this and tighten it all the way down. See how it's still loose? So what that means is it's not long enough. So completely bottomed out, this push rod is not long enough. So I can already tell it needs quite a bit. So you take it back out and you repeat. So we're going to take this, extend it out more, set it in, and we're just trying to get as close as we can, and then we're going to make smaller changes. See how tight that is? So what that means is it's now too long. So I'm going to take it back out, and we're going to slowly take it in. So we're going to start with 1 full turn. Okay. It's getting close. As you see, it's rocking back and forth. That means it's a little bit loose, but it's still too tight. Actually, I don't know if you can see, but it's got a little bit of movement. So it's actually too short. So look, see that rock? Now we're going to spin it. Yep, I can spin it. So it's actually too loose. So now we're going to go just a tiny bit, a quarter of a turn, maybe less. Okay. Now we're going to go quarter of a turn. Now be careful. You don't want to adjust it as you put it back in too much. So it's rocking back and forth. It's not going up and down. So it's really, really close. I can still spin the push rod in here. But I say it's still a little too tight, so I'm going to keep fine-tuning it as much as I possibly can. Now we got side-to-side movement, a little bit of up and down. So I was really close before. Since it's going up and down, that actually means I need to come back out a little bit. So I was actually dead on that previous setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take it out, turn it 1/8 of a turn, and it should be right where I need to be. Do this slow because you don't want to mess it up. This process needs to be done slowly and precise. Okay, still side to side. I have 0 up and down movement, so I have nailed it. That is exactly the setting that I need it to be. So I'm going to take it out and then I'll show you how to measure it. Okay, so off camera, I went ahead and measured the other rocker next to it just to make sure that it was close or similar. And in my case, it was actually identical, thank God for me. And in a lot of cases, LSs are identical with the intake and the exhaust side. But there are cams that are essentially different. Like you actually may have a cam that has a different length push rod due to the lobe length and height or whatever, but you just have to measure them all and make sure. So I got lucky in my case and it's the same. As you see, the length of the push rods are significant. And this is why cams get destroyed. People don't measure and double check things. So what I got here is a dial caliper that I purchased from Hobo Freight. And what you want to do is zero it out. So set it to inches, zero it out. And then you want to actually go past your 7.4 because you know that it's longer than 7.4. And so I'm going to go ahead and go past 7.4. Yada, yada, yada. Here we go. Where are we? There, we're at 7.4. Now I'm going to start my base measurement there. And I'm going to try to get it as close as I can. And you want to be very careful about this. So I actually am going to measure it myself real quick here so I can use my hands and actually do this correctly. All right. So I have it set 7.554. So I need a 7.55 push rod. So is that really the case? No. You actually have to add the preload of the lifter. And as I said previously, the Johnson lifters are a 30 thousandths plus or minus 5 thousandths or 500 thousandths. So 0.030 plus or minus 0.005. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to take that 7.554 and I want to add 0.030 to that. So I know that I need to go ahead and order a 7.584 or as close as I possibly can to that push rod. So I'm going to go ahead and get those ordered and then we're going to throw it in the motor tomorrow. All right, so we went ahead and got those push rods ordered. They ended up measuring at an average of 7.547 was the average across all of them. So we ordered a 7.55 as, like I said, it's 030 preload with the 005 tolerance. So that should put us dead on to that tolerance. So while I wait for those to arrive, we're going to begin on the timing cover. We're going to start removing the timing cover, changing the oil pump, looking at the oil, the pickup, make sure everything's clean, and kind of go from there. But you never know. I mean, I just pulled the harmonic balancer off. You never know what you're going to find when you get inside these things, especially when people beat the living daylights out of their cars. Why? I don't know. Just how people are. So I'm going to start draining the oil. I clean this pan thoroughly so I can inspect the oil. So I'm going to start letting that drain. People always torque these things way too tight. ahead and get that back under there. So we'll let that drain, and in the meantime, I'm looking here at the magnet and checking it for any shavings. And it looks like I don't see any shavings. I just see moly lube from the previous assembly. So that's a good sign. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this all off, let that drain, and then get ready for the timing cover. Okay, so we have the timing cover off, and you can see the timing chain, the sprocket, and then you have the oil pump right here. And you can't get to this bolt. There's no way to get to the bolt, so we're gonna have to drop the pan. Luckily for us, we're draining the oil, and we can just take the bolts out. So it's pretty accessible around this cross member, so let's just go ahead and start removing the pan. Okay, all the pan bolts are out, everything's looking real good. Now we just have these two, which I'm assuming it'll start tilting down very quick here. But I can see some of the glue that's holding the pan on, so let's get these two out. Yep, there it goes, starting to tilt down. Now I'm hoping I have enough room to drop this all the way out of the way. Otherwise, we're just gonna have to do it from the pickup only. Yep, she's heavy. Still got some oil in it. This out of the way. Okay, pan has lots of oil still, and there we are. So the pickup looks really clean. Everything looks real clean. So now we got to take this 8mm, start doing this. All right, so we have an 8mm here, but first this has to come out. It's a 13mm. Remember, you got to torque all this back down properly when you put it back together. You wouldn't want this nut to come loose in the bottom of your pan and potentially destroy the motor. So keep that in mind when you put this back together. Just set this right here. Looks like this one only has the one. I work on so many of these cars, I can't recall remembering everything. Some of them have two, some of them have a one. It just depends on which one you're working on for the pickup. Okay, take out this 8mm. And then I'm going to show you how you pick your O-ring. Here's the oil. It's very clean. I see no glitter. So we can go ahead and dump that and move on. All right, so LS oil pressure. It's been beaten over and over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm gonna do it again. So here, I'm working on this project and I have a motor that had lifter tick, and it also had some lower oil pressure than it should have. So I went ahead and bought a 10295 Melling oil pump, which is a high pressure oil pump. This is so I can feed plenty of pressure to the turbo and to the motor and make sure everything lives. Now you can go with high pressure, high volume, or just high pressure, or just high volume, or you can go with the standard pressure. You choose based on your application. You can also watch some videos to see how that works. Now, how these oil pumps work is there's a gear that spins right here on the crank, and then it spins everything inside here, which allows for the pressure to suck through the pickup tube and go through this little hole in the backside that goes into the motor. That is why there is a little piece right here for a spring. What that spring is it allows you to regulate your own pressure. So you have a blue spring here, you have a black spring. You can regulate your pressure based on what you want it to be. Even if you have a 10295 oil pump, you can regulate it even more with these springs. It's an extremely simple procedure. It does exactly what you need, just play around with it the way you need it. Now I'm gonna keep the spring that I have in it, which is green. And then here is the O-rings. You have a black, a blue, and a green one. This has the black and green O-ring. And if you look at my pickup tube, it is perfectly flat, the same diameter going up and down that pickup. So I need to look at the instruction sheet here. And if you look at the instruction sheet, it actually shows that with the green O-ring, it's either a stepped, two-step thing, 1, 2, or a flared. Flared meaning it kind of goes at a cone shape. Both of those take a green O-ring. If it's flat like mine, use the black O-ring. If you put the wrong O-ring in your motor, you will have low oil pressure and oil pressure issues, so please be extremely careful on how you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this on the crank and get this installed. All right, so I cleaned the surface. I know it doesn't look like it, but it's dry and clean. Now we're going to slide this on. Sometimes you have to clock it. There we go. And then put it on the block. And then get yourself some Loctite for the bolts. I use red, you could use blue. I use red though. Oil pump, I don't want to have any chances. Thread these in. Now, you got to torque these at 22 foot-pounds to just snug them down. Do not tighten them down with this. Just get them down flat. Okay, just barely touch. Now I'm going to get my torque wrench and I'm going to tighten these to 22 foot-pounds of torque. So with the O-ring issues being the #1 culprit, a lot of people try to look, oh, I can kind of see it. Oh, yeah, well, guess what? Get yourself a dial caliper and check. So it says 0.87 approximately all the way across, or 0.84 to 0.87. Let's go to the bottom. 0.87 on the bottom. .87 on the top. So we know for a fact it's straight. We can ensure that it's the black O-ring. So now that we know without a reasonable of a doubt that it is a black O-ring, you want to slide it on and then make sure that you lube the ring with oil. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. This is 2050, it's fresh. I'm just going to lube it around here. And with that lubed, it should slide in place really nice. So get it lined up with the stud. Lined up here. And you don't want to rip the O-ring, so be very careful. Don't over force it. Boom. Popped right on. Put the crank nut on. Get the bolt that goes in here. And I actually want to put Loctite on this, so I'm going to get some Loctite. Alright, I cleaned the bolt real clean. Cleaned my hand so I can grip it. Now again, get yourself a torque wrench. It's not 22 foot-pounds, it's actually an inch-pound, so I'm going to look it up. I believe it's 12. I can't remember the exact amount, so I'm going to look it up. I'm going to torque this down, and then I'm going to torque this bolt down to its torque specs, and then we're done with the oil pickup tube, and we can begin on the pan. Okay, now that the oil pump and the pickup and everything is done, I put the timing cover on loose so it can go up and down, because the timing cover can sit below the groove of the block. So you need to be able to put the pan on and tighten everything down, and then you tighten it so everything goes flat. So you actually put a little bit of silicone in all 4 corners on top and bottom of the gaskets so that everything seals nice. I already did that, and I also have the gasket on the pan after I clean the pan. So let's go ahead and install it. All right, now that we have all these bolts in all the way around the pan and on the front timing cover, I'm going to go ahead and start torquing these down as well. We have 22 foot-pounds and you go kind of center out. So I'm going to follow that pattern, get this torque down, torque this down, and then we're done down here. I'll get the pulley on and we'll move on. Okay, so we have this torque down, timing cover torque down, and everything's ready to go. We have the new harmonic balancer, which you want to lube the hub and the inside where it goes on the crank with oil before you do this, and then get yourself a actual harmonic balancer install tool for an LS. This is from Summit. It's a really nice unit. Get yourself one. It is worth the money and it makes it much safer. You don't strip anything. So basically what you do is you tighten this in by hand to the bottom, and then you just tighten this and it pulls it on. Now this wants to turn, so I'm going to get something in here to stop it and then tighten it all the way on, and you go until it's completely flush. So we're in really good shape now. We have everything done with the oil pump, timing, lifters, so on and so forth. So now it's just a matter of putting everything back together on the motor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin putting the exhaust manifolds back on so we can get the turbo pipes back on here. And what I've noticed is it's a lot easier to get to things before I put the water pump and all the accessory drives on. So I'm going to get these on real quick, which are always so much fun because they're covered in fiberglass wrap and it itches miserably. If you've never worked with fiberglass wrap, don't. Unless you absolutely have to. It's miserable. I mean, it does protect things, but it's itchy, it's miserable. I hate working with it. So let me go ahead and get this on here. Okay, so I have lots of clearance now. So the time comes for me to set this in here while I have the space. So I have to gently, without damaging the radiator, get it down in here. Now before I do that, I got to get the new intake boot for the intercooler. So that came from Powder Coating. It's black just like the valve covers. Let me grab it. Here is that boot or pipe. So we're going to slide it through to the intercooler. Okay. Now we want to lower it in here. Try to get that pipe on. So the pipe is not on, so I'm going to try to take advantage of this time to clamp it to the Y pipe. So everything is kind of secure. So I was able to get one nut on, so I'm going to go ahead and get this clamp on the other side. Okay, now I'm going to snug these down a little bit so I can start maneuvering the rest. All right, so I've been very busy. As everything goes, I decided to start putting everything back together. I got the clamps on the up pipes. I went ahead and put the charge pipe here from the turbo. I have the top vacuum line and the vacuum lines for the wastegates. So all that is complete. The turbo system is pretty much 100% ready to go, other than the down pipe and the oil feed line. I even got the oil return line down to the pan. So we're in really good shape. So let's go ahead and see what else we want to do for tonight, but we're waiting for those push rods and hopefully we're real close. All right, so today was just another busy day. We got a lot done. The oil pump, timing, oil pan, all that stuff is done. The turbo setup is on the motor again. Everything is really close. I can say with confidence that tomorrow when I pick up the push rods, which are 100% ready to be picked up, we're gonna get them in this motor. We're gonna set the valve lash. We're gonna get everything, the water pump, the thermostat, everything done, and we're gonna get this thing started. So let's go get those parts and I'll see you in the morning.